them. And I do think it might be best to confront them at first away from everybody else. Now, you may have to talk to the other kids as a whole about, hey guys, we can't tolerate this kind of behavior, blah, 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 blah. And then I would go ahead and try to handle it privately. And you know what? It's about a relationship that you're going to have. I mean, to be honest with you, the most important thing you're ever going to do with that kid is to help him go from where he is to a better spot. And you're not going to do that hollering at him, embarrassing him, or anything like that. You have to sell him that you're there for him, and maybe even get him to agree with you on some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? A consequence. Not a consequence that you're going to impose on your own, but maybe an agreed upon consequence that you and he can come up with together. You're muted. I think you're muted there, or at least I'm not hearing you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been muted. Yeah, no, I like that because I don't want to just go with the standard, oh, we're going to sit you this inning or the rest of the game for an outburst, or now it's going to be 2 games because like it just emotions and that sort of thing don't escalate. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, growing the punishment doesn't grow the
Solution.
behavior that you want or the solution. So I just needed to, I do like the individual approach. I was kind of thinking about doing that with him anyway, but that makes a lot of sense.
And it might be helpful to get to get their parents, or one of the parents involved in on that, just so there's some support, so everybody knows you're coming at it from not a punitive point of view, but a growth point of view.
And Pat, real quick too, if a lot of people in the leadership meetups are administrators and board members. So a great opportunity for leaders here on Zoom is what are at the institutional or organizational level, what are you guys doing to promote a culture where we acknowledge emotion in the game, we acknowledge that there's a place and space for that, and how do you guys foster that? So just something from a board's perspective, what is kind of the organizational level aspect of that?
We make sure that our coaches live that. We've got I think we're behind you guys in a lot of the technical stuff, but in terms of the cultural stuff, we're very strong on coaches behaving and modeling the correct behavior. And if coaches blow up at umpires and lose the plot, no surprise that their kids are going to mirror that behavior. I think that whole issue of emotional control is one of the great gifts that our sport gives kids. Getting through the situation that Pat's kids are in and getting to the other side is one of the great gifts that they can have in life. Focusing on the things they can control, their own performance, and zoning out, the umpire, the other team, everything else that's out of their range of control. That's what we try and encourage our kids to do.
Gary,
I think most of them do pretty well with that.
How do you do that, Gary, from an organizational standpoint? I mean, is this built into your coaches meetings? Is this built into your parent meetings? How do you guys implement it?
We have a code of conduct that we make sure everyone is aware of. We have signage up on the grounds where we encourage the right behavior. We don't have formalized coaches meetings as such, because baseball is a relatively small sport in Australia. We just get around informally to each of the coaches and impart the right values on them. Interestingly, a lot of them also play. So we have a beer league that we, like an amateur minor league thing that we, not minor league as you guys know it, but and a lot of the coaches play in those teams, and we model the right behavior in those teams as well. So we try and engender a culture at the senior level and at the junior level that you actually behave the right way. You don't abuse teammates, you don't abuse the umpire, you don't abuse your equipment, and it kind of filters down. So it's probably more informal by example rather than anything. But generally, that's one of the things actually I think we do pretty well.
Gotcha. jump in here, Scott. Did you have kind of something you wanted to ask or add?
Yeah, I did, Tom. So, I have a 10U team, and something that I started doing this year, because I started seeing even at this age, Pat, where kids are struggling with playing with, playing timid, playing with fear of messing up, and a lot of anxiety and tension. So something that we started doing this year is even before our first practice, I wrote all the kids a handwritten note. And in that side of that note, it said that they have our permission to make mistakes as long as they are trying their best, to set that standard right from the get-go that, this is a non-judgment zone, that you come out and you try your best, and you're free to make mistakes, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow. And I think that setting that out in front of the kids, especially at this age, will hopefully help them as they get to the teen years where you're at. Hopefully they'll have be more confident in their abilities. So.
Yeah, I like that, Scott. It's important that the kids know and believe that they can make a mistake. Going home in that car, God knows what happens in some of those cars when those kids go home. They've made a mistake. They've thrown the ball to the wrong base. They've struck out 3 times. I mean, we just don't know what happens. And all of a sudden you get timid kids. So I like that. That's a really, really good idea.
Thank you.
I can also say, Scott, especially when they were younger, I would use say 3, say 5, give them a window, right? Give them a time. Hey, you can be upset, right? You can be emotional there. It's an emotional game. We just have to be able to recover and get to the next step, right? Take your 3 seconds, take your 5 seconds, take your deep breath, let it go, and let's go on to the next pitch, the next swing, the next play. So that, knowing it's okay to be emotional and have a reaction, but that I need to control that reaction is part of it. And I just haven't had a lot of time with this young man, and it just so happens he's also like the one kid on the 13U team who's taller. I'm 6 foot, 200 something pounds, and he's bigger than I am. Like, he's a huge kid, and so like it stands out, right? And I think he does. There's definitely an embarrassed factor that you mentioned earlier that I don't think he wants to admit it or talk about it, but other things have come up that make me go, this is part of it. You feel that him dropping this ball or whatever is a reflection of you and your performance and how it went, not the other way around.
Right. I was doing some work with a group in England, and they were a baseball group from London, and these were, I guess, adults. It was an adult league. And one of the guys told me that they had a player that when he was upset at either the umpire or maybe somebody on their own team, he'd just sit down. He was in this particular case, he was on second base. He just sat down. He sat down. He told everybody he was pissed off. He's sitting down. He's not going to do anything. And this was an adult. And it was an American who had contacted me that was kind of running the league and said, hey, he was laughing. He says, over in the States, obviously that wouldn't fly, but over here, everybody, how do we deal with those things? So it was a very interesting thing. And I just came from a sporting event where my granddaughter was playing, and I was watching the parents. Okay. It's almost painful to watch the discomfort in the parents of the team that's losing, which was my granddaughter's team, as they watch the game, and they don't really understand the real benefit of what is taking place on that court. The winning and losing, I mean, it's great. We should all play to win, but there are so many other things to be thankful for as you watch your children and grandchildren play. And sometimes I think we need to remind our kids and our parents of those things.
Yeah, Scott.
Well, it's hearing you say that, Steve, it brought me back to last summer when we started back, when things started opening up from COVID. And when we started back, all the parents had to be set up at the outfield fence. Nobody could be in by the dugouts or in the bleachers by the backstop. And it didn't take me long to notice that these kids were playing more relaxed and more free because there wasn't all the static coming from the bleacher creatures around the backstop.
Yeah, and Scott, that just leads me to believe that in our organizations and our high schools, and we are dropping the ball when it comes to parents. It's kind of like, they're kind of like the elephant in the room. We all know they're there, but let's not really talk a whole lot about it because, my God, they could come out and bite us. I think we need to address them. I think we need to bring them into the solution. We need to point out to them what bad examples are and what good examples are, and expect them to behave in a way that's appropriate, that's best suited for the development of the kids. And they have to know that, hey, this isn't about scholarships. This isn't about winning and losing. It's about the kids growing up. And you know what? You can still grow as a kid if you're getting hammered. You can still grow if you're on the bad team. There's lots of opportunities there.
Yeah, I reckon when I've looked at parents in teams that I've coached, there are three kinds of parents. The first one kind is the childcare ones that they just drop the kids off and you never see them. They see it as a childcare arrangement, or they sit watching or at the game on their phones, or not engaging with their kids. The other kind, and that's an increasing number in Australia sometimes now, because more kids in Australia are getting scholarships to US colleges, and some parents have gotten into this really competitive, high pressure, my kid's going to go to college, my kid's going to play in the major leagues or whatever. And they're the opposite. But then the best parents are the ones that, and luckily the most of the parents I had dealings with were like this, they just delight in their kids. So maybe they delight in their kid getting picked for an all-stars team. Maybe they delight in their kid actually making a good play for the first time ever, or getting onto base when they're struggling. So at whatever level they're in, I try and get the parents to delight in the kids. And that'll vary depending on where the kids are at. But there is those other two, and I try and minimize those two and maximize the numbers of parents who have that delighting in what their kids do.
Yeah. Fred?
Yes, good evening. I'm Fred Sims from Harlem Little League in New York City.
Welcome
Yeah.
to our meeting tonight, Fred.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. I remember talking to one of you guys who taught at St. Louis University, at SLU, St. Louis High School. It's a while ago.
And Fred, I think that was, I think you and I had talked, was it about the Start Baseball, right? How to
That's
start
right.
the kids in it?
Yes,
Yeah, I
Right.
remember.
right before COVID, because I went to Whitfield, you went to SLU.
That's right.
Nice.
So we're starting up, we canceled our season last year, 2020. And we started up this year, lost about 100 kids. So we have our job ahead of us to recruit those kids. But it's interesting, you were talking about the parents, and I've coached from T-ball up to the majors. And one thing about the parents, that is like I always write a letter to the parents to let them know what I expect from the kids, the behavior that I expect. But then I write a separate one to the parents and tell them what I expect from them. Because some parents can get so involved that it becomes a distraction to the kids. And there's a couple of times I've had to pull parents aside and say, listen, I have your child for 2 hours during the week for practice, and then we have games on the week. You have them for the rest of the week. Just give me those 2 hours, or give me those 4 hours. And they don't realize the influence they're having when they're yelling to them from the stands. And at one point, I had to stand in between the kid and the fence and say, listen, don't listen to your father. Okay, I'm your daddy right now. But I have had to pull the parents aside and explain to them exactly that what I'm trying to do. Because some of them, they think they're helping. And I say, if you want to help, then become a volunteer. And then you can help out. But I don't want you helping your son. That's my job. Okay, so I typically don't have parents helping their kids, if at all possible. But one thing too, as far as these kids failing, one of the main things I express to them is that the best batter fails 3 out of 10, is only hits the ball 3 out of 10 times. Okay, they fail 7 times. So the key thing is not failing, because everyone's going to fail to get better. It's how you recover from that failure. And that's one of the key things that we try to teach in the league, is that you're going to get put out, you're going to strike out, you're going to drop a ball, but how do you recover from that? Shake it off, move on. Otherwise, it will affect your next play and the next one and the next one. So that's one of the main things, is just how they recover from failure, because it sets them up how they recover from failure in life itself.
So interesting. I love listening to these ideas from guys, and it sounds to me like we have, Tommy, a whole bunch of great people and experienced coaches. But the concern I have is, if my kid plays for somebody who's a young coach and he doesn't have the wisdom or the experience that you've had, or Gary, my kid plays for somebody that doesn't pull that guy aside informally and help him get going, where do these young coaches that are stepping up, trying to help out, where do they get the resources, the knowledge to know how to do the things that we're talking about here? And, Tommy and I were talking last. Go ahead, Fred. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well, that's why I contacted your organization.
I was going to say, obviously they should be in here, Steve. I mean,
Okay.
that's.
The reason is that I have found that, look, just because someone can have a child doesn't make them a good parent. The same thing, just because you have a whistle and you may know baseball doesn't make you a good coach. And this is what we were seeing coming up through our organizations. We don't have professional coaches. These are parents. Some of them play ball. Some of them just looked at baseball, So what we want to do is at least get a baseline of credibility, a baseline of information for them to work with. And that's why I said, well, we can teach them, but sometimes it's better to have someone else who can come in and teach us how to be a better coach, how to be a better player, how to work with kids. Some people just don't know how to work with kids, which can ruin a kid for the next couple of years. There's a retention issue with baseball in the cities to begin with. So we're doing everything we can to retain them as much as possible. And that means, if it means getting some good coaches, because we, as a volunteer organization, we can't pay for coaches. So we have to make sure that the people who volunteer are vetted. And I would like to have a psychologist come in if possible, and then vetted mentally, but also knowing what to do when they're working with kids and how to run practices, and not to yell at the kids and not to discourage the kids. And there are coaches we've had to put out of the league for that very reason, because we realize they can't coach. They know baseball, but they can't coach. So that's why your organization and organization like yours are so important, to bring those issues to show us how to hone our craft.
You know, it's funny, when we first started this, I really think, now this goes back 8 or 9, 10 years. I really think we were trying to teach like baseball skills and like how to make a pivot and how to go, you know, how to hit the ball the other way, or, you know, whatever, you know, cuts and relays. But as we've got into this, it appears to me that maybe the most important thing that we'll ever do, the impact we'll make, is on the other side, is actually helping organizations implement strategies to raise the bar, to raise the expectations of their coaches, and provide the resources so that they can raise the bar, and ultimately to perpetuate baseball and to also give the kids and parents a better experience. So it's been really eye-opening for me, just you know, when I think back to how we first started.
It's important that you look at it that way too, right? Like we talked about kids and parents, and that's like the last meeting I have, right? The first meeting is back with the other coaches and everything else about, here's what I'm going to deliver and here's what I expect from you in a behavior and a culture standpoint, right? Because that's the example. That's where everything stems from. As I was pretty blessed, right? You know, we all seem like we've been doing this for a while, but I was blessed as a young guy to have a very sage athletic director at the high school who was like, look, man, you can't argue every call, right? Like he took me aside and he gave you some of those skills, right? Go get those young guys. We need those young guys. We need those guys who have played and are fiery and passionate about it to keep that going. But you do kind of have to show them the ropes, man. There's no born leaders. There's no born coaches. It's a skill. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of work, and you have to have expectations for it and hold those people accountable to those expectations, just as you would a parent, just as you would the kids, right? You know, that's kind of how I always dealt with the parents. We had a code of conduct for the players. We had a code of conduct for the parents, and you know, the code of conduct for the parents, would, especially in game time, was simple, right? Like, don't coach at all. Just cheer for your kid. Come here to do what you came here to do. Root, cheer, find something positive, give them some encouragement, pump them up. Do that, right? Like, they get enough coaching from you and me all week long. This is their one moment. How are they ever going to show you they can do it if you're just constantly yelling at them? It won't work, right? They've earned it. They've earned to have this moment. And if you don't give it to them, they can never prove anything to you. So let them have it.
And it's their moment. That's right.
Scott, I guess, and then Gary, or unless or whoever wants to go.
Well, I just wanted to, and that was great, Pat. By the way, I really like that. But I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on some of what Fred touched on as far as organizations and coaches. And you know, Steve, I think you and I spoke back in the spring, and you know, I had mentioned my frustration with our organization and how you know, it's a big organization, and they're in the you know, the situation where they have more kids than they have, and more teams than they have coaches to coach. But they were it was very hard for them to implement any sort of coaches education program, because they were out there seeking volunteers, yet didn't want to put in the effort to educate these volunteers. And so my question to you and Tom is, what sort of ways have you guys found to approach these organizations to encourage them to take that step, to find creative ways to educate some of these volunteers so that they are better coaches for these kids?
Tom, do you want to try that, or?
Yeah, no, Scott, this is, you know, this is the $1 million question that Steve and I always wrestle with. we are always trying to reach out to administrators and board members and leaders and trying to develop a program from the top down. We're trying to reach coaches. Steve mentioned, the Chalk Talk Sunday night baseball 101 discussions. So we're always trying to address that, and our free member account is always filled with those kinds of resources as the very foremost resources. The resources in the sense of development and character development and coaching the right way, so to speak. The drills and everything else tend to be in more of that pro membership. I'm stuttering kind of in the sense because it's a hard thing. It's this is our latest iteration of trying to do that, is these leadership meetups to get people talking about this thing, about these topics. Steve, anything?
Tom, I was just going to say, I have a kind of an old school approach, but the problem I have is I want to do things and I bite off more than I can chew. So like Chuck, you're still here, right? I think Chuck is here, and if he is, he can hop on and verify this. But Chuck is from a place in North Carolina, and so what happened and what we did is, we had an opportunity to go and speak with one of the guys that ran the club, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come out?" So I got a chance to go out, and I got a chance to meet the board that Chuck is from, as well as the board of the neighboring town, Little League. And once I met him and we had a personal relationship, and then I helped them set up maybe what coaching portfolio could be. And I established that relationship, and then they felt like, hey, this is something that will work. But it takes time to do that. And I can't go out, or Tommy can't go out. We can't be everywhere. So from our perspective, the best thing to do is to try to develop relationships with people in organizations that care enough that will take this message to their board. And then we can go and directly talk with the board through Skype or through a Zoom. And then sometimes I actually go to the place, or Tommy might visit and do a clinic or camp or what have you, to further develop the relationship. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create that relationship that they know they can count on us, that we're going to be there if they need something. We're also going to provide the resources for them to supply their coaches, all those guys that would step up and coach if they thought they had a resource, but are now in the background that won't step up because there's no lifeline given to them. And we want to provide that. We want to sell people and organizations that we can help those guys step up, and girls step up and be great mentors for our kids. But it's hard.
Chuck, yeah, there you go, Chuck.
There you go. All right, good. Steve came out, did a great job. We had the largest turnout after that clinic, then COVID hit, and now we're starting all over again. But we're going to take Coach Baseball Right and distribute it to all our coaches. We're starting our fall ball program now. We've got to start over because we've lost most of our coaches to travel ball. So we're starting over again with a young group. Coach Baseball Right is going to go to every coach. They'll be able to access the pro membership level, do the practice plans. We also, for you guys wondering about the parent and coach end of it, Positive Coaching Alliance is an organization that has helped me personally the last 10 to 12 years. It's made me a different person just listening to their ideas, sharing it with the parents that need it. Not all parents need it, but there are some that need it. And that's been a good resource for our league to say, if we have a coach that's getting out of line or parents getting out of line, hey, come take PCA. Take this course. and see what you think. And it should change those parents and coaches to getting on board to being for the kid instead of against the kid.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck.
I think we've hit a home run with Coach Baseball Right and PCA together in our league, getting everybody on board that it's about the kids, it's about the community. The personal egos, they need to go. I'm sorry about that.
Guys, any other thoughts or comments?
One of the things I'm going to try and do this season, our season's been delayed. So we have summer when you guys have winter. So our season should have just started, but because of COVID, it's not going to start till November. I was thinking of utilizing the team managers more. I don't know how, traditionally we would have a head coach, a couple of assistants and a team manager who are all volunteers. And I was thinking of trying to get these managers to start moving away from just thinking that their job is to make sure that someone brings the fruit at the end of the game, or that everyone knows when the game is on, to actually be responsible for engaging with the parents and engendering the right culture, which then allows the coaches to do what they want to do, which is actually the technical game day work. I just wondered whether that's something that other people may have done before. Because traditionally the managers are people who have reasonable values, but they just don't know much about baseball. So I thought I might try and utilize them a bit more than we have in the past.
Gary, tell me again how would you actually implement that manager? What would his function be
So we've often stressed great coaching in our club, and we've got coach of the year awards, we've got coaches, coordinators, but we haven't really done that for managers. So I put my hand up to be the managers coordinator. And what I'm going to do is actually try and work with each of the team managers to impart on them, not make them second guess what the coaches are doing. Say, look, the technical stuff is over to the coach, but the cultural stuff, that's something that you can play a bigger part in than you've had before. So just regular communications, meetings, talking about engendering the right team culture amongst the players, but also amongst the parents. Because I agree, we also have the problem of parents who are trying to coach rather than encourage their kids, which we all think is great. Of course you should encourage your kid, but when they, tell a kid what to do, tell a kid to bunt when the coach is giving them a different signal and stuff like that. So I'm just wanting to, that's something I'm going to try and do with our club. And I just wondered whether other people have done similar things or.
That's a great idea.
This is Fred speaking again, and yes, that's something that I've done. I've been a manager for, seems like forever. I had managed in 5 years when I had my son. We lived in Berkeley before we moved to New York City, and I was just going to coach in New York City, and the VP of operations said, "Hey, I can get a coach. Coach is a dime a dozen. I need a manager. If I don't have a manager, I'm not going to have a team." So I was like, okay, I guess I'm the manager now. And what I've done though in the years following that was T-ball on up to majors. I've made it as a manager, my coaches are from within the parents. So it's my job as manager to, if they don't know the basics of the game, to teach them the basics and work with them. And I work closely with the managers and also with the parents, because we have functions for the kids, but I decided that maybe the parents should have a night out. So I take the parents out. And so we sit around and discuss over drinks or food or whatever, how they see the program, what problems they are seeing or what they would like to see implemented or not, as opposed to them taking their concerns directly to the league president. So I have found that it's been easier to have a separate meeting for the managers, and I'll sit down, not the managers, but the coaches, my coaches, and sit down and talk to them and tell them what I need and find out if there's any issues, but then talking to the parents separately, taking them out. And literally, then one time we went to a club and just sat there, had the greatest time. But I found out there's some concerns that they had that weren't voicing to me anyway as the manager. So once I knew that, then I could address those. Some could be addressed. Everyone wants their kid to have more playing time, but not every kid can pitch. And this is what I have to explain to some of the parents. They can't throw more than 30 feet in a straight line. I can't have them. I'll work with them to get to that point. That's my job as a manager. But I'm not going to put him in any position where he will hurt himself or hurt the team. And that is one of the things, messages that I try to impart to all the parents, that we're here to teach the kids, but we're also, and to instruct the kids, but I'm not going to put them in positions that they're going to get hurt. They can't catch a ball, they're not playing first base. That's it.
Thanks, Fred. Scott?
Well, my question to the group is, as have any of you or your organizations, do you do anything to kind of get your finger on the pulse of the parents, players, and coaches, whether it be with a survey or other opportunities for them to give feedback? And if so, what are some of those things?
Well, one thing that I do is after each game, I send an email to all the parents concerning the game itself and how we did, pluses, minuses, and what we have to work on. And I ask for any feedback from that point. You know, it's just little 1 or 2 paragraphs summary, and then maybe there's something I'm not seeing that they see, but at least let them feel like they're part of the game or part of the team. And then again, we usually have a function either during the middle of the season or at the very end to see if there's something that the parents can, any suggestions. That's why I'm always open to suggestions. So at least making the parents feel like they're included as opposed to just being observers. They're stakeholders also.
And I love that, Fred. I think that you hit the nail on the head, that from my personal experiences, when you involve the parents and you give them a little bit of skin in the game and make them feel involved, that goes a long ways in making your job as a coach, especially, much easier. Instead of, I've heard recently of these coaches that, of these travel teams that actually don't allow parents to come to the practices. And that just absolutely blows my mind. And if I can't believe that there's actually parents that go along with that.
Yeah, well, I think with travel teams that's another sore issue with us, that we lose a lot of kids. We are starting to lose some kids to travel teams to the point that we're starting to we've created our own on the side. They're not affiliated with us, but 90% of their players and their coaches are from our league. And I found that with travel teams, a lot of parents, because they think they're paying all this money, we're talking about anywhere from $800 up to $3,000 for the season, if not more. And because of that, they let the coaches do what they want. But other times, there's those feel that, hey, because I'm paying all this money, I should have some input too. So that's why, as a volunteer organization, we just say, no, you're not paying anything. You pay registration. We take it from here. But yeah, that's an issue with travel teams that we are trying to deal with now, because they're siphoning off our players.
Yeah, Gary?
I'm interested to understand more about that phenomenon of travel teams and how that the relationship between your clubs and travel teams. Travel ball is just starting here in Australia. There's a travel ball comp that's been set up, and there are trials going to be taking place for 3 different charters to form this travel ball team. And my son's pretty keen on baseball. He's keen to try out for it, and I want to encourage him to do that. But I'm just interested to know what the relationship is, because we have a club competition, which is for kids just to play for fun. And the better and the more engaged of those kids then try out for their charters all-stars team. And then we go off to state championships, national championships. But now for the first time in Australia, there's this travel ball layer that's just starting. And I've heard a few people mention it. I'm just interested to know more about it and how it can help kids, but also what the potential tensions are that I might need to be mindful of.
Well, Gary, where are you at in Australia?
I'm in Sydney.
Okay, because we play an Australian team from Perth called the
From
Perth,
Perth.
yeah, Perth Colt Heats, Perth Colts.
Okay.
And the guy who runs it is named Steve Fish. He's with the he was a scout for the Red Sox.
Mhm.
And he lives in Australia, between there and Oregon. And their program is set up such that the parents pay a certain fee, they train them in baseball, then they bring them to the States. And they will show them, they have one team that goes up the West Coast, one plays across the US, and another one plays along the East Coast. And we play that team on the East Coast, and they want to show them what the grind is like, the minor league system. You know, you play ball, then you move, play ball, then you move to another city. And they're usually gone for 2 to 3 weeks. So
yeah, we have a similar, there's a program, Next Gen, which is run by 2 former Australians who played Major League Baseball. My son's very involved in that, and they have a similar tours to the States as well. So it is starting here. But for the first time, we're now, that I'm aware of anyway, there's a travel domestic competition that's sort of starting up. We're hoping to start up this year.
yeah. Well, I can say within the Harlem, it's a volunteer organization. You just pay $150, $125, and everything is provided to the child, and you're guaranteed to play. But you have different skill levels too. And I've had people on my team, parents, complain to me that their son, who they have private tutors in baseball, they go to baseball camps, they live and sleep 8 baseball, and they're on the same team with someone who, as soon as you look like you're going to throw a ball to them, they're crouching, they're covering up. They say, how can you have a team like this? And I said, well, that's my job as a manager, to try to bring them together here. But that same parent will take his child to play higher competition someplace else. And that's where we're seeing a lot of our parents taking their kids to travel teams, which will play people at a higher degree of a higher competition. Because we're
And so did those families go and do just the travel ball? They leave your association, or do they generally do both?
They do both. Some just leave completely because they don't want to play with a kid that doesn't know how to play. Others will play within our organization and almost use it like training, you know, and then they will go and play on a certain day with their travel team. But the problem that we're having now is that some of our better players are just completely leaving our organization and going to play travel ball. So what we've tried to do is we've just started a separate organization. Actually, one of our coaches started a separate organization to play competitive baseball. So because I'm on the board of directors, he's on the board of directors, we don't want to do anything that would hurt our program. So we make schedules such that those kids will play within our program on Saturdays. And Sundays is for the travel ball. But there's, again, I think through Little League, there's supposed to be no affiliation between that, and we don't do anything. They just take the players. And then some of our coaches, but they have no affiliation with the league. So that way we try to keep a happy medium between recreational plus kids that want more competition. This is our second year doing this, so we'll see how it works.
Okay, thanks for that. That might be the future for us, I'm thinking.
Hey guys, we are very mindful of everyone's time. I know we try to market this as a 30-minute experience, and tonight was great. We went past that, and I certainly enjoyed this. Tom, is there anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, early on, Steve, you mentioned not next Sunday, but so we have Chalk Talk now on Sunday nights. That's every other Sunday night. So not this upcoming weekend, but the following weekend. We had our first Chalk Talk this past Sunday. Steve spoke on base running. Our next leadership meetup will be the third Tuesday. So we'll roll out a new topic for us to discuss. And then I do want to make sure you guys know that please pass this on. Get your other board members signed up for the very least a free admin account. Get your coaches a free coach account. There's a ton of resources there for you guys and for you guys to share. So as always, if there's anything we can do, Steve and I can do, Coach Baseball or I can do, please let us know. We kind of create programs willy-nilly sometimes just to make sure that we can reach you guys. So
Tom, when's the next leadership meeting?
So this is the third one. So October 5th looks like will be the first Tuesday of October.
Okay.
Yeah, October 5th. Thank you.
And
No, I'll be back at work then, so I'm not sure if I can make it because it's the middle of the workday here. But I'll see what I can do to get out.
Great, Gary, come on.
we are recording these, Gary. So yeah, the recordings for leadership meetups will be under the admin section.
Yeah, I'll tune in if I can.
Yeah.
And the Chalk Talk will be this Sunday at what time?
It'll be a week from this Sunday, at
Oh.
7 o'clock. And we do that on Facebook Live and some Instagram. I don't know if we'll have to figure that out still, but last week I did it on Facebook Live.
Yeah, our Facebook group, Fred, our private Facebook group.
So
But
people need to join the Facebook group to access it, don't they?
yes, which we're working also on getting that recording on YouTube as well. So once we get that, I'll be sending out some emails to you guys for sure.
All right. Well, I'll pass this information on to my board, my VP of operations, and make sure at least 2 or 3 others will be here for your next leadership.
Great. Thanks,
Sounds
Fred.
great. Hey guys, thanks for all your support. Look forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone. Thanks for the discussion. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye guys. Be safe.
Thank you, Tom and Steve. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
See you,
Bye,
Chuck.
Chuck.
See you, Fred. See you, Gary.
Bye.
See you, Bobby.
Bye guys.